Well, hello, comeback champions. How are you guys doing today? My name is Angel Tuccy, and they call me a media exposure specialist or a media matchmaker. And I'm going to teach you how to leverage the power of media interviews and publicity to grow your business, your book, and your brand. But thought I'd start with my own comeback champion story, let you know a little bit about me and how I came to be the media matchmaker for so many top influencers, authors, speakers, and coaches. About 3 years ago, I had kind of a turning point in my career, and maybe you can relate to this a little bit. For 10 years, I had been a radio broadcaster out of Denver, Colorado. I was the host of the most positive business talk show in America, and we were nationally syndicated coast to coast from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. And I was living the life of my dreams. From the outside, it just looked like a fantasy life. I got to be on the radio, invited to all the best gigs in town, all the best charity events, super connected to the top influencers in the city. I was also the host of a second 2-hour Christian lifestyle show where I was speaking to moms in minivans in the afternoons. And so I had a 2-hour business talk show, and in a 2-hour commercial break, I switched stations or switched studios, same station. Actually, it was a different station. Mother, you don't need to know the details, right? But the mother station was the same, but we were on 2 different channels. And so we switched studios in a 6-minute commercial break and hosted a second 2-hour Christian lifestyle show. So what that means is I was hosting 4 hours of talk radio every single day. That puts me in the top 1% of the industry. There's not a lot of talk show hosts who host 4 hours of talk radio every day, and less than 1% of them, less than a dozen across the country, are women. And that's the role I was in, leveraging the power of media, helping my advertisers get more bang for their advertising dollar. On average in Denver, the average monthly advertising spend was about $7,000 a month for radio ads. Think about this now, right? I mean, for a couple bucks a day, you can do ads through Google spend, ads through social media, ads on Amazon, so much more affordable. But back then, my clients were spending a healthy amount of money, and they came to me and said, Angel, how can we get the most impact on our advertising dollars, on our advertising spend? And so I started teaching them the power of media exposure, how to leverage the power of media interview, how to create publicity around their advertising so that we stacked up their exposure. And that's what I want to teach you, is how to stack up your exposure so that you are seen everywhere. The myth, right? At the time when I first started my business and started networking, actually at first I was hired. Believe it or not, I was hired to do cold calling for a speaker. After one day, I thought, this is a complete waste of time, cold calling. There's got to be a better way. And so then we discovered the power of networking. And I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing is networking? You can go and meet lots of people at one event. The challenge, right? Networking is time consuming. You're building relationships, and relationships take time. People do business with people they know, like, and trust, but that trust needs to develop. I joined a leads group, and I started going to this leads group every single week, and we were doing one-on-one coffee meetings. We were taught to schedule one-on-one, coffee chats, do discovery calls. And you can see how this just really starts to add up to a whole lot of time consumed for building your business. And I don't know if you know this, but the average small business owner closes within 3 to 5 years. And even those that stay open, according to the IRS, less than 6%, so 94% of small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs never hit the 6-figure mark, $100,000. And that is heartbreaking. Think about why you got into business. Think about why you do what you do, right? You got in here to create a legacy, to make a difference for your community, for your family, for your clients. And what ends up happening is most small business owners end up busy but broke. Right? How it's terrible. We're doing all these one-on-one discovery calls. We're sending messages through LinkedIn. We're selling our time by giving away our calendar link and saying, schedule a call with me. And I've been on calls with workshops and like, Angel, I've discovered I'm filling my calendar. I'm getting 40 or 50 phone calls a week. Yikes. I mean, even if you're doing them in 20 minutes, that's a lot of time spent, prime business building hours, giving away your content for free. And so I'm going to teach you how to stop being busy but broke. No more onesies. If you're taking notes, write that down. No more one-on-ones. No more one-on-one discovery calls with unqualified leads, right? Cold prospects. And how do you build your business one-to-many? I'm going to teach you that. So I was doing, I was hosting 4 hours of talk radio every single day. And I did, we started our business talk show 10 years prior. So I was in broadcasting for well over 10 years. And in the last 3 years, I left radio, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And I've been leveraging the power of my own TV show. We do a morning talk show, podcasting, but truly leveraging the power of what I call OPA, other people's audiences. Instead of going out and chasing clients and trying to find your perfect leads, leverage the power of somebody else's media platform, somebody else's podcast who has a target audience filled with your ideal clients. Radio, magazines, stages, leveraging somebody else's audience, adding value to their audience, and then leveraging that into building your business. So back it up a little bit. 3.5 years ago, I walked into my studio all ready to host 4 hours, right? We produced 2 back-to-back shows and all set up. In fact, I had a client who had flown in. I was living in Denver at the time. I'm in Orlando now, but I was living in Denver at the time. And he had flown in from Miami to be a guest on our show. He was setting up his tripod. He was going to go live because it was really cool to be in the studio, right? Being featured in the media, on mainstream media, in a traditional media interview. And that was being broadcast nationwide. So he was, going to stream it. It was so exciting. We had done all the preview and the promo for it, that he was going to be in the studio. It was an exciting day. About 5 minutes before we were scheduled to go live, my producer called me into the studio and he said, Angel, we've made a change. Just like that, I'm off the air. 5 minutes later, I'm being escorted out of the building with my cardboard box, with my disco ball that, yes, every Friday I would put my disco ball up and we'd have a nice little disco dance party on Friday afternoons. I know it was radio, but we did it anyways. And I was off the air just like that. Talk about embarrassing, right? I had to go in and tell this gentleman he was not going live on the air today. Right. So not only had I been released from my contract, it was like very public with somebody in the studio who I had to tell that person to right there in the moment as I'm reeling through all of this emotion. And then, of course, because it's radio and because it's public, all of a sudden that afternoon, we were not on the air and I was getting phone calls and text messages and Facebook messages. Where are you guys? What happened? What's happening? There's something else where your show is traditionally. So it was a very public release of this change that they had made. And, not to put anything bad mojo on the studio, this is how they do it. Like, this is pretty common. There's no warning. There's no advance notice because they don't want you going rogue on the air, right? So this is common. I'd seen it done hundreds of times. It's just the first time it had happened to me. And so here I'm left how to deal with this emotional, letting go. Have you ever been fired? Have you ever been dismissed, rejected, maybe by a client, somebody you love, somebody you care for, right? Rejected, turned down. It can bring up some really interesting emotions inside of you, confusion, right? Doubt, fear, all of that. But then at the same time, also this release that happens. This door closed, but what else is going to open up for me? What other things are possible? And truth be known, I was ready for a change. I had been in broadcasting, was in a pretty toxic environment. We had changed studios, new station. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And honestly, I was ready for a change, but I was in a contract. I was in, and actually I was locked into several contracts because we were nationally syndicated. Have you ever felt trapped, kind of stuck, like I've got to stay here and I can't figure out a way out? It's kind of where I was. And so even though this was really sad and depressing and embarrassing, it was also a blessing. It was a blessing because I was released instantly from this lifestyle that I was ready to move on from. Only thing is, I hadn't planned for moving on for it. I hadn't made any provisions for what would I do next. People had often asked me, Angel, if you weren't on radio, what else would you do? Like, this is the glamorous life. Why would I leave this, right? I got it all. And so I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have a plan B. I'd been in broadcasting for so many years. I didn't have a plan B. Do you ever feel like I got to stay here because I just don't know what else I would be doing? Well, fortunately, I had been working with a business coach. I had just taken a public speaking course to improve my skills in public speaking. Even though I was in radio, you'd think public speaking would have been like a shoo-in for me, but truly it wasn't. I was the girl in high school that almost didn't graduate because one of the required classes was our public speaking class. And I was too embarrassed. I had too much stage fright. I mean, truly, the butterflies would not sink into formation. My mouth would dry up. I could barely utter enough volume for my classmates to hear me. I was a train wreck when it came to public speaking. I was the perfect example of utter stage fright. And yet I needed this class to graduate. Unfortunately, my teacher took pity on me and gave me a D just so I could pass, a D for effort, right? It would have been an E, but gave me a D for effort because I did show up and I did try. I couldn't do it. And so public speaking, I'd always been a little nervous, a lot nervous, really nervous about getting up and speaking in front of even a small group, even in a conference room, even in a classroom, let alone on a stage. So I had just completed a public speaker course. So as I'm now given this new lot in life, right? I have this chance to recreate myself, right? Redefine what I want to be. Well, then all this fear is like in my head. And I was 48 years old at the time. My two oldest daughters, who are twins, had decided like right in that same time frame that they're moving out. My son was in college, so I was becoming an empty nester. Pretty much my entire life and everything I knew was just falling out from underneath me, like all at the same time. Can you relate? Like everything I know, everything I'm comfortable with, everything I'm familiar with, being a mom, being a radio talk show host. Oh, and at the same time, my co-host and I, who had been running a business on helping entrepreneurs leverage their media exposure and grow their businesses, we were hosting probably 7 to 10 networking events and business trainings and leadership events like every single month. And we decided like so much of it was kind of pinnacled around the broadcasting that this was just a good time to shut that down too. So now we're shutting down our business, like so everything. Do you ever feel like the world is your oyster and you could do anything in the world you want, and yet having every single opportunity available to you is also paralyzing? Where will I go? What will I do? I can do anything. And so now it was time to really take a deep assessment. Who is Angel? What does she want to do? What is she good at? What lights her up? So I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase. Like, you're not tired because you're too busy or because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're not doing enough of what lights you up. And that was kind of where I was. I wasn't lit up anymore. So now here's a chance to do what I do to help, to light myself up every day. And so I went back to my roots. I loved helping my advertisers get more media exposure, create the visibility for their business. I loved turning a business around who was struggling emotionally and financially, feeling busy but broke, and helping them to work smarter, not harder. So I started traveling as a public speaker of all things, teaching entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, and speakers how to leverage the power of media. I've been on the inside of it for 10 years. I know exactly how to pitch to the media. I know how to reach them. I know what happens when you pitch to them. I know what the follow-up process looks like. I know what you can and cannot say. I know how you can get invited back. I had 10 years of all this really good, juicy knowledge. And there was nobody on the speaker tour. When you go to all these seminars and workshops, they tell you, well, to sell more books, get media interviews, right? To fill your course, get exposure, to, load your podcast, get visibility. Like they're telling you to do all those things. There wasn't a single speaker on the network that had been on the inside and now was out teaching it. You'd find the occasional person who said, I got exposure for myself. Let me show you what I did, right? And I got these random once in a lifetime things, but I don't know how to do it every month. I don't know how to do it consistently. Well, hello, I do. And the secret formula is 2 interviews a week, 1 press release a month. 2 interviews a week, 1 press release a month. That puts you in front of 100 fresh new audiences every single year. 100 new audiences. Can you imagine what the power of 1 interview could do? What kind of doors that could open up for you? When you're a guest on somebody else's platform, media, radio, magazines, podcast, stages, the audience already trusts that host, that journalist, that podcaster. They've been following them. They're familiar with them. And because they trust them, by them inviting you into their world and introducing you onto their platform, to their audience, that trust transfers directly over to you. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's instant trust. You elevate your credibility because you're the one speaking. You're the expert that's been invited. You're adding value, expert advice, and great content and tips and tricks, tools of the trade that maybe they haven't heard of before. Your stories are inspiring and encouraging them that even though they've fallen or they've only gotten this far, like it's not too late and that there's still hope. So you bring all of that to somebody else's platform, to a fresh new audience. They fill the room. They fill the podcast. They've attracted the audience. And you get to come in like as this superhero and say, let me teach you something. Let me teach you something new today. And by turning that interview, leveraging that interview into a call to action that leads them to a low ticket offer, right? First your freebie and then your low ticket offer. You can really monetize. You can start to see how this can really start to monetize. So let's really dive in because I've got a lot to share, but I hope you feel inspired. I hope you feel like it's never too late to pick myself up and to start new, that everything that I've used up until now has prepared me and trained me for this moment, this time. And remember, what you do, what you think is ordinary, because I thought, who wants to know media? Like, is this a thing that like it's behind the scenes? I just was going to work every day. And when you're working, it's the grind. You don't realize how fascinating it is to the outsider. So what you think is ordinary is magic to somebody else. And we want to leverage your magic in front of fresh new audiences every single week. So how do we do that? 3 parts. 1, 2, 3, simple. Well, it's not always easy, but it is a simple formula. The very first piece of it is really leveraging the power of a media interview. Interviews are critical to growing your exposure, elevating your brand, creating an influence in front of a fresh new audience, and not on your own platform, but on OPA, in front of OPA, other people's audiences. Because we can go all day long, right? And go Facebook Live, do our own YouTube channels, maybe our own podcasts, and we have our own audience that we've attracted. And when I first started out in radio, we were trying to build our following. So what we would do is go and speak on other people's platforms. We would go and speak to small groups. We would speak at workshops. We would do interviews on other people's radio stations or podcasts to drive traffic back to our show. And one of the best parts about media interviews is you don't even have to be comfortable with public speaking. You don't have to have a signature talk. You don't have to have a 3-point power presentation. It's a conversation. Now you'll provide your media interview sheet. Write that down, a media interview sheet. It's a little different than a sales sheet. It's not really highlighting you to get the gig. It's what you provide to the journalist, to the podcaster who's interviewing you, that creates a very exciting introduction, an anchor lead-in, an anchor introduction. It also provides the questions that they are going to ask you. And we are strategic about what kind of questions they're going to ask you, because this is a short form, right? This is a short period of time. We want to highlight your expertise. We want to give them some really juicy, high value content. We want them to take notes, and we want them to take action. So introduce you as the expert, right? Your background, your expertise, why they should follow you. Some really high value, juicy content, education, tips and tricks that get them to take notes and then take action. So we're going to create a media interview sheet that we send to the journalist, so that then when they're interviewing you, you can guide this conversation. And 8 out of 10 times when I send my media interview sheet to a journalist or a podcaster, they use it verbatim, exactly word for word, exactly how I present it. 9th person has their own agenda and they're going all off cuff and doing their own thing. And the 10th person is just willy-nilly, right? But it's okay. 8 out of 10 times when I provide my media interview sheet, and this should be in your media packet, I want you to create a Google folder, a Google Drive with your media interview sheet, the introduction for how they're introduce you to their stage, not just your typical bio, but here's the why now, why this matters, what's in it for the audience, introduction, and the interview questions that they're going to ask you. You also want to have your headshot in there, maybe even a sizzle reel, some media exposure, a couple different things that they can leverage and use to see you in action, right? So number one is we're going to leverage the power of the media interview. We need to position you, right, as an expert in the space. So I want you to focus on one single topic, one expertise that you are the absolute expert in. You're going to dominate the industry, crush it, right? Anybody who hears this keyword, they're going to think of you. Oh, you need somebody to talk on media? You need Angel Tuccy, right? Like it is just, they should go together like peanut butter and jelly, right? Like peas and carrots. So your talking point, your top expert topic and your name, like they should just automatically go together. So eliminate, don't think that, oh, I have to have all these different presentations and I need to be very flexible in what I speak on. Nay, focus on one. Build yourself up as the absolute expert in that space and stay there. Ride that wave, ride that until, till the end of time, right? Until you want to add something new to the mix. This also allows you to monetize it. Because if you have one single topic that you cover in a media interview, then you have the perfect call to action that complements that interview, gets the audience into your sales castle. So we want one funnel, your sales castle. Right? Imagine you have a castle, around it is a moat, right? And the only way into the castle is through this drawbridge. That is your call to action. That is the singular entry into your sales castle. It should be a freebie. It should be digital. It should be a squeeze page where they opt in with their email address or their text phone number. So for example, to get into my sales castle, you can download your complimentary media starter kit that has a full year of attention grabbing headlines, how to reach out to the media, how to get started. Right? So I put all the starter pieces inside this media starter kit, and I give it to you free when you go to my website, makeyourbigimpact.com. So makeyourbigimpact.com, download your free media starter kit, and that gets you started. You should have the same type of opt-in. And the opt-in should be the answer to what are people asking you for now, right? How do I lose weight? Well, I have a great PDF, a video, an email series that teaches you how to lose weight. How do I build my business online? I've created a whole video series. I've created a workshop. I've created I've recorded a workshop. I've got a PDF. Here's how you get it. And then they opt in. So this is how you start to leverage that audience. You give them really juicy, high value content in the interview. And then you've got a really great call to action that gets them into your sales castle. And remember this, exposure without a call to action is wasted exposure. Write that down. Exposure without a call to action is wasted exposure. I would speak at these conferences. That first year I was traveling all the time, and people would come up to me and say, Angel, I got an interview. We were on the news. We were here. We were there. And our business didn't grow. When you know people saw you, you know there was an audience. There was visibility. So it was what you said, who you said it to, or how often you said it, right? Those are the three critical pieces to messaging, right? Who are you saying? What are you saying? Who are you saying it to? And how often are they hearing it? So in most cases, when it comes to a media interview, the call to action is so willy-nilly, is so vague. Go to my website, follow me on social, go to Amazon and buy my book. Never, never, never send the audience to somebody else's sales castle. Don't let them get lost in social media where they're going to be all distracted by whatever, right? Don't send them to Amazon. Send them to your sales castle, yours. Even if you're selling them a book that's going to be sold through Amazon, right? Still send them to your sales castle to get started. So go to makeyourbigimpact.com. You can get a copy of my book, Get Discovered. You can get a full year of attention grabbing headlines, 52 press release ideas. So all the things that we talk about here today, we're going to get you started and give you the beginner steps to that so that this isn't overwhelming for you. It's just simple, rinse, lather, repeat. So the first thing, media interviews, position you as a content expert, create your media interview sheet, and a really fabulous call to action. Step number 2. When you're a guest on somebody else's platform, typically it's not an infomercial. You're not selling anything, right? You're there to add value. It's not a sales pitch, not an infomercial. You did not pay for advertising. This was really critical when I was talking to my advertisers because they created commercials, right? They had commercials that were selling their stuff, right? Programs, products, services. In an interview, if you haven't paid for it, it's not an advertorial that you're paying to sell something, to fill an event, to sell products. They're not going to let you advertise because you didn't pay for the advertising. But they are going to invite you in as a guest to give great content and to talk about what makes you an expert. There is one thing though, you can sell even in a non-selling stage, even on radio, on television, in a magazine, in a podcast, that pretty much every journalist, even on a selling stage where they're like, no selling. This is a non-selling. We don't want a whole bunch of sales pitches from the front of the room, right? Networking events, right? You're not selling in the room. There is one thing that is kind of sidesteps the rules of engagement when it comes to selling. And they will allow you to sell this one thing all day long. And in fact, if you sell this item, they will often invite you to be a guest just because you have this item for sale. Any guesses? 1, 2, 3. Your book. How many of you are authors? How many of you want to be an author? 84% of Americans would love to be an author, and yet only 1% are. Isn't that crazy? You want to be in the top 1% by becoming a published author? Say, yes, that's me. I've always wanted to write a book, or I've already written a book. I just don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to get it out into the marketplace. I do. Be interviewed on other people's audiences and promote your book. This is a great low ticket offer. So you have your freebie, want the freebie always, right? That you're building your list, right? So if you can't sell, BYL, build your list. But the low ticket offer, get them into your sales castle, start pulling out their credit card and start buying your information, right? Sell your knowledge, not your time. Sell your knowledge, not your time. I call this process, I teach my clients a process of writing what I call your food book. Not a cookbook, not something full of recipes, but the book that puts food on the table. This is your low ticket offer that gets them into the sales castle and starts the monetization of monetizing your exposure. Now, your food book, it is a 100-page love letter to your clients. It talks stories, case studies, results. Right? It gets them to fall in love with you. You ever wish you had more time with them? You could have, engaged with them more, tell them more. You've got 100 pages. Tell those stories, share those results, give them the reason why you do what you do. Right? 100-page love letter. And here's the thing is most of your book is already written. I call it CPP, copy, paste, and publish. Copy your stuff, your website, your social media posts, your blogs, your frequently asked questions, the things that you say all day long, the content that you've already created, publish it into a 100-page food book, a love letter to your clients. And then this is your low ticket offer. So have you ever had people say, hey, Angel, can you teach me everything? You bet I can. I can teach you everything I know about how to get discovered using media interviews and publicity for $20. And they're like, really? All day long? Go buy my book. Go buy my book. Where do you get it? Start at my website, makeyourbigimpact.com, download the complimentary media starter kit, and there's a link to go and buy the book, Get Discovered, through Amazon. So I want you to send them to your castle, right? But have the link so then they can go and purchase the book. So you're not in the book selling business. You're not in distribution. You're not in fulfillment. By having your book on the world's largest commerce marketplace, Amazon, you can start to create passive revenue. Not only do you get invited to speak on other people's platforms, you can lead that audience into your sales castle and create a low ticket offer with buying your book. So you start to create this passive revenue. And then you're being featured on the world's largest commerce platform, which is Amazon. And we teach you how to trigger their algorithm so that they're helping to promote your book to their buyers. Talk about OPA, other people's audiences. How many of you would love to have Amazon as your sales partner? Think about this. Now, this is where it really starts to get juicy. You probably have a revenue goal that you want to hit this year, right? Every year you've got your revenue goal. And even if you break it down to quarterly or monthly, what is your revenue goal? So think about your revenue goal for the year. And if you wanted to increase that revenue goal, or so you have your revenue goal, and then you also have how many clients do you need to serve in order to hit that revenue number. So if that number was $100,000, look, I've got my really old fashioned calculator. I've had this thing for 1,000 years, right? If you wanted to make $100,000 and your average client spends $500 with you, right? You need 200 clients. So, like if I'm going to set this revenue goal, is how many clients I need to serve. So this is how many people I need to be in front of, right? How many sales presentations, how often I need to be speaking. You can start to do the numbers, right? And create systems in place to hit your numbers. But if you wanted to make more, right? If you wanted to raise your revenue, you think, how many more clients would I need to serve in order to raise my revenue? What if I told you that number could be 0? You could raise your revenue without adding any more clients into your sales castle, right? Or onto your calendar, without having to serve them, to take up, your time and energy. So you can really start to create the lifestyle that you got into business for. So no extra clients, but still creating more revenue. And the way that you do that is through the passive revenue of selling your book. So think about this. You're doing 2 interviews a week, 1 press release a month. You've got your media interview sheet, you've got this great call to action, and every single week you're in front of a fresh new audience. Imagine if you sold 25 copies of your book every time you did a media interview. 25 copies twice a week, that's 200 copies of your book. That's $5,000 in passive revenue, in sales, right? $5,000 in sales. Do I have your attention? When I started to figure this out, it actually gave me goosebumps. It actually gave me goosebumps because I think about all the people who want to pay off debt, right? You've got a credit card you want to pay off, a student loan, a car, right? You need to get yourself out of debt. Maybe you have some things you want to invest in, some coaching programs, some products, some services, you want to upgrade your technology, you want to hire people, you want to buy inventory, right? Pretty much if you're growing your business, you're heavily investing, right? We're taking all that we're bringing in and we're putting it right back into the business so we can grow it. When we are a published author and we're leveraging the power of media interviews to drive sales, then we can start to hashtag fund the life, F-U-N-D, the life, fund the life. So think about this right now, something you want to buy, something you need some money for. How many books do you need to sell in order? So if you're selling a $20 book, right, Angel, I need $2,000, right? I'm gonna hire you. I'm gonna need $2,000, right? And I've got a $20 book. I need to sell 100 books. I need to sell 100 books. So you don't have to look at your budget. You don't have to look at like what bills are coming in, what income, like all of that. You're like, I want this thing. How many books do I need to sell? And in many cases, right? So interviews, press releases, all great ways. But you have people in your phone who send you messages all the time, who are texting you, who are emailing you, who are on your email list. Pretty much with an email, you could sell 100 books. Pretty much you could, with a Facebook post, right? You could sell 100 books with some direct messaging. Hey, have you grabbed my book yet? Have you read it? Do you have it? Love to see what you think about it, right? It would be great, super valuable to you. Would you go and buy my book today? Selling your book is one of the easiest things in the world to sell because it's low ticket and everybody knows how to support you as an author. So number one, media interviews, right? Position yourself as that content expert, create your media sheet and a really juicy call to action. Get them into your sales castle. Number two, publish your food book. Oops. 100-page love letter to your clients. We teach you step by step through Media Mastery how to put out a food book in less than 90 days. Yes, in less than 90 days, you could be a published author with a fabulous low ticket offer, something you could offer through these media interviews. Third piece, publicity. You are sitting on a riches of headlines. Think about this. What's new? You shout it out on social media. You tell your friends and family, hey, I'm publishing a book. I launched a course. I'm speaking on this stage. I've started my own podcast. I've revamped my website. I've hired a VA. Right? All of these things that you are doing week in, week out, if you were to look at your calendar and look at all of the things that you've done, like checked off your to-do list, all of those could be headlines. Extra, read all about it. Angel Tuccy speaking on Comeback Champion Summit. Headline. Think about your annual goals, things you want to do this year. And you're looking at it. And by the end of the year, what was your audacious goal that you set for yourself? Right? Was it, I'm going to serve 1 million customers. I'm going to be in an international global superstar. I'm going to be on the cover of a magazine. I'm going to publish my book. I'm going to launch my course. Like, what were your giant audacious goals that you set for yourself? And imagine this was the end of the year. Imagine you hit that goal. That's a headline. Now back that up a little bit. And every time you hit a baby step towards that milestone is an opportunity for you to create another headline. Press releases are so valuable for small business owners for creating publicity because they are the language of media. What do you send to a journalist to say, hey, you should have me? You send them your press release. This is news. This is newsworthy. This is a brand new headline. It's a current event. And we speak to the media in the language of media. We speak to them the way they understand. And so I encourage you to put out a press release every single month with your headline. And here's something fabulous. Your local news station has right on their website. Here's where you submit your press release to us. They are looking for news. They want news. They need juicy headlines. They want community interest stories. They want to know what's going on in their community. And where do they get that information? From press releases and some social media, but mostly through press releases. And then if you think about, if you want major media coverage, you want to be featured on a major media outlet, where do the major media outlets, news stations, get their news from? Like, where do they get their stories? From their regional affiliates, their regional markets, And where do the regional markets get their news from? Their local news stations. And the local news stations get their news from press releases. So now, extra, read all about it. I'm launching my book. Speaking on this event. I'm putting together a podcast. These are headlines. Create a 350 to 500 word headline or press release and submit it to your local news station. And that local news station is on a major media platform, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. When they share your story, when they feature your press release on their website, you get to say as featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. Instant media coverage, instant publicity, and you can do it all for free, right? Because they are looking for those stories. So you can submit your press release to your local journalist, to your local news station, and start to create that publicity for that exciting news that you've got going on in your world, right? Now, to take it one step further and to scale it, I would recommend using a distribution service that sends that press release out through the Associated Press, the AP Wire. And you can check that out at our website. We have a nice distribution service. Lots of places do. We have one of the best, right? We have in-house writers. We write your press releases for you and we distribute them for you. And we do it as a subscription service so that you're getting a press release out every single month. So leverage the power of publicity for your business. Get those media logos, create the energy and the excitement of seeing your headlines in the news. So 1, media interviews, 2, publishing, and 3, publicity. That's the power, right? Or those are the steps to create all the visibility, to fill your events, to fill your sales castle, to fill your leads, to attract more business to you, and to stop being busy but broke. No more onesies. Trade in your 2 hours of networking for 2 25 to 50-minute interviews a week. And you can find them for free. When you go to my website, makeyourbigimpact.com, we have a link to a media matchmaker site that's going to put you in a Facebook group where you can connect directly with journalists and event producers who are looking for speakers and guests to be interviewed. We have everything you need, all in-house. And I hope that you take advantage of it. The world needs your story, right? And there are unlimited number of media opportunities that are waiting for you to show up, right? To show, to show up. There's never been a time like we're in now with so much opportunity for you to create visibility, exposure, to do it all from the comfort of your own home or for wherever you are. In most cases, you don't even go into the studio, you do it virtually. So you don't have to have a signature talk. You don't have to have multiple things that you speak on. You get to stay the expert in your lane. And even if you're starting from scratch, if you're starting from nothing, you don't even have a list, you can get started instantly by leveraging the power of a press release, a published book, and media interviews. And if you do have a book and you have a list, now you can automate that and scale that up even faster. I hope you go and fund the life. I hope you go and create massive media exposure for you and your business. And I hope I served you well today. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And thank you so much to the Comeback Champion Summit for hosting me. I'm Angel Tuccy, your media matchmaker, and I'll see you in the news.